Hey, all you toasters and moshers out there. I'm Charles, and this is Riffs and Spliffs. Hi, hey, and welcome to the Riffs and Spliffs podcast, your home for cannabis education and music appreciation. In this first intro episode, I aim to let you all know a little bit about myself and what you can expect as far as the format of these episodes that are forthcoming. To start off, I'll give you guys a little bit of background about myself. My name is Charles. I am 31 years old. I am originally from Iron Mountain, Michigan, which is a small city in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. A very lovely place. I go and visit pretty often with my significant other. One of our favorite places to go. I am a dad, a stay-at-home dad at that. My son himself is about to be 2, and actually he will be turning 2 only a couple weeks after this podcast is being recorded, so that's exciting. Happy future birthday to you, Asen. To continue on, some other things about myself is I myself am a musician. I've been playing since the age of 12 when I got my first bass. Thank you, Mom and Dad. On top of that, I picked up guitar at the age of 16. Started dabbling in drums around the age of 1920. Never really had a full acoustic set, had a really crappy electric, and I sufficed and it helped. But I went on to actually play drums in a band in my mid to late 20s, and that was really fun to play drums for. So, good time. My first encounter with heavy music was at a very young age. I had a cousin who listened to the band Korn, things like that, Deftones, even some hardcore punk ska stuff like the Suicide Machines, and that kind of turned into a whole spiral as I got older. Around the age of 11, I had a friend show me System of a Down. Actually, I believe it was 10. And he showed me the song Needles, and I was just sitting there thinking, pull a tapeworm out of your ass. Dude, what? That doesn't make any fucking sense. But this music's pretty good. I like what I'm hearing. Then on top of that, you had Linkin Park coming out at that time. Other new metal bands, other kind of heavier-ish, funky influences, Rage Against the Machine, Limp Bizkit, the list goes on. But yeah, I started early, and as time went on, I started junior high. I met a friend. He showed me a band called Behemoth, and as far as really extreme music and metal is concerned, that's when it big dive bomb. Continuing a little more on the music track, I then, shortly after that, had found the Black Dahlia Murder, Job for a Cowboy, See You Next Tuesday, Psyopus, a ton of bands just kind of around that whole sect of music, and that was it. My life as a metalhead started there, and I never went back, and the genres did a lot for me through life, and I will always be very grateful for having those friends who started me out with those bands and that music, and yeah, it really shaped who I am today. So coming away from the music world a little bit, I also am a big fan of TV, not so much movies. My favorite series is South Park. Everybody has their opinions of it, I feel like, but I stand where I stand, and I find those men to be very funny. I digress. I also am a very big fan of anime. I was exposed to it at a young age from my own brother. He's 2 years older than I am, so there was a lot of Adult Swim growing up, things like that. So you 90s kids, if you're out there listening, you know what it's about. Or if you're a weeb. Either way, I know you'll all know. Going on a little further, I have 2 cats of my own. I'm a big cat person. I worked with animals a lot actually through my life and have a veterinary assistant certificate. So that's a little cool tidbit about me. The last 2 things I want to mention, I guess, at this point about myself is I've been skateboarding for past 23 years now. Got my first board when I was 8 years old. Never looked back. Pretty much, along with music, it is the other half of my personality, and I don't really know where I would be today without the influence of the skate community and the music community. Hands down. Gotta represent, 100%. Something that is a bit more recent is I know I mentioned I am a fan of anime myself, but recently, a couple months ago, I took the dive into learning the language of Japanese. It's been really fun, really interesting, knowing and having been exposed to anime and the Japanese culture has been a big help in that. But surprisingly, and I feel it's because of their symbols, that it's been a lot easier to remember the pronunciation of each character and what they mean and how to build on them. So it's been a fun journey. I suggest anybody who's been looking into it or ever thought about trying to learn it, you should do it. It's definitely worth the time and feels very rewarding. So get on it. Learn that Japanese. Now that we got that little introduction out of the way about myself, we can go into the format of the podcast and I can share with you guys how and what you can expect this podcast to look like going further. As the name suggests, this podcast is going to be about riffs and spliffs. And by that, I mean music appreciation and a little bit of cannabis education. To give a little bit more specificity to the did I say that right? I'm pretty sure I said that right. Specificity to the cannabis education section, that is going to be more of a directive and concentration on strains themselves. And now you might be scratching your head trying to think, well, what exactly does that mean? Well, here, let me tell you what that means. This means that I will be covering as much as I can find as far as the history and the origins of the strain itself. I will be talking about flavor profile. I'll be talking about common effects that you can expect from that strain. You can expect a breakdown of the sativa hybrid and or indica balance. And just as a little added extra, I will also give a little bit of a breakdown of what my personal feel is when I smoke each strain, just because everybody's endocannabinoid system is a little bit different. So each strain is going to affect each one of us a little bit different. I will also be going over a lineage breakdown of the strain. I'll probably tackle a couple tiers just because you have to take into consideration the parents that make up this strain, and sometimes not even just that, but the parents that might make up those strains, because those overall are all the effects that you're going to be receiving from the specific strain, and you want to know what you're going to be in for. The last thing you can expect from the cannabis education section is the potential medicinal benefits that that particular strain might have based on its terpene profile. I myself am a medicinal patient, haven't been for too long at this point, but I will say that the use of the medicinal benefits behind cannabis has become a driving factor of one of the reasons why I wanted to start this podcast. And hopefully, as you guys join me in my journey, and hopefully you guys learn a little bit more as time goes on. Maybe you know more than I do. Maybe you don't know nearly as much. Hopefully we could teach each other something along the way. I guess we'll have to see, and I look forward to it. But yeah, so that's what you can expect from the cannabis education section. And let's get to the music appreciation part, shall we? First and foremost, if you haven't caught on to this by now, the music part of this podcast will be covering sects of music that are of bands that are on the more extreme / obscure genres, things that you wouldn't find in the mainstream, obviously, things that would be considered sometimes DIY, even depending on the band themselves, but that will be the prerogative behind the music appreciation section. So let's get into the breakdown about that a little bit. So in this music appreciation section, I will be taking a band and essentially kind of doing almost the same thing in a sense that I do with the cannabis section. I will be kind of giving you a breakdown of when this band was founded, when they started, where they're from, if it's available, the information about how they got picked up from their first record label, things of that nature. Some of these bands, it was kind of hard to find information for, so I don't have a ton, but I did my best, especially because they're more unknown and more underground bands. Harder to find interviews, things of that nature to find information on them about. I will also be delving into their discography and breaking that down. I will give kind of a ranking of their albums, but not based on the fact of this is how I feel, so this is how I'm ranking them. I will be listening to each of them as I am covering the bands and writing the episodes, and I will thoroughly take in, the music, the production, this and that, and I will rank them, in my opinion, at that point of overall aspects of the discography, if you will. A few other things that I'll be going into will be breaking down their genre. I'll go over the original lineup for the band when they first had started, mention possibly some member changes depending on if it was a big enough change for the music world that they really made news about it, or it had been noticed or brought up for some reason or another, something like that. I'll also cover their final lineup if they're a band that no longer is touring and functioning, or I'll just cover their current lineup if they're currently a touring and functioning band. Nothing crazy. Usually the lineups aren't too drastically changed from when these bands start, but some of them have some interesting lineup changes for sure. And if I could, I tried to do my best to kind of search through interviews, whether it be articles that you read through or videos on YouTube, whatever it may be, to find some interesting facts about the band that some people might not know. Maybe super fans of the band might, but us little people might not, depending on who that band is. But yeah, did my best, and hopefully you guys will get a little crack out of some of those interesting, fun facts that I found about these forthcoming bands I'll be talking about. How could this be Riffs and Spliffs with nothing of any mention of riffs? Well, here it is for you. I will also pick, depending on how large the discography is of that band, a riff of the week or riffs of the week. In addition to that, I will cut out a little clip of said riff so I can post it here for you guys to actually hear, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. And hopefully by hearing that, you too will think that it's a sick riff. And by all means, at that point, it's there for you to go check out the song, and you will have that information at your disposal. The final section of this little appreciation and cannabis podcast will include something for people that like to have a little bit of an easy listening experience. I have a little section that I will be naming Chill 'em Out. Haha, get it? See what I did there? Chill 'em, because you smoke out of it. This podcast is about smoking weed, So yeah, guys, that's essentially what this podcast is going to be about going further from this point. I'm very excited about these episodes and to release this content for you guys. I essentially want to use this platform to bring essentially two communities together that I know are already in a sense together, seeing as I am myself a metalhead and a cannabis user. I have met many people who are exactly the same. Obviously, there are going to be people who do not like to partake. Someone I know who is personally close to me is straight edge, and that's okay. He loves his heavy music, and there's nothing wrong with that. More power to you. But more than that, I want to be able to educate you guys to hopefully be able to look at cannabis in a different way, not just as a plant that you can smoke to get high and, enjoy your activities that you do on a daily basis, or, to help cope with stress, but to really look at these strains and figure out which ones are really going to work for me, which ones are really going to hit that target of what I'm trying to get under control, whether it's a migraine or some fatigue or I need my appetite kicked up, whatever it may be. But that's what I want to help you guys with as far as this cannabis education side. As far as the music appreciation side, I want to open you guys up to potential bands or genres or albums, different parts of the music world you never thought you would be able to open up to or never thought you would have expressed interest in, or even if you are a fan of heavy, obscure, extreme sects of music, maybe you'll find a band here that you never heard of and they might become your favorite. That's the point. And hopefully you guys will see that going on, that, I'm here for you guys. I'm here to give you guys what you're looking for as far as information and even for a little bit of entertainment, I'm here to entertain you guys, and I'm here creating for you. So let me just say that I appreciate any ears that this is falling upon, and I appreciate any support that you guys will end up giving me in the future or continue to give me from this point forward. And with that being said, guys, again, I really appreciate that you took the time to listen to this little intro. I will also be releasing 2 episodes along with this intro, so you guys get 3 episodes right off the bat. How do you like them apples? Be sure to check out the show note description below, where I will have all my social medias linked nice and ready for you so you can keep up on all the happenings over here at the Riffs and Spliffs podcast. And if you would like to send any kind of personal requests, comments, concerns, feel free to send me an email at the riffsandspliffspodcast at gmail.com. And I will be sure to get back to you probably in a timely manner. I don't do too much, so this is going to take up the majority of my time. Not going to lie to y'all. And with that being said, I'll see y'all in the next podcast. And remember, stay toasty, my friends.